Hello, I'm Natasha Gutierrez. Welcome to Talk Thursday. All eyes are on the Philippines as it hosts the 23rd World Economic Forum East Asia on May 21 to 23. Analysts have been hailing the Philippines as a potential major global leader. Last year, the Philippines was one of the best performing economies in Asia, despite the major disasters that hit the country in 2013. The WEF is expected to focus on the Philippines' economic triumphs. But this progress is continuously threatened by corruption scandals and natural disasters. Joining us today is National Economic and Development Authority Director General Arsenio Balisacan to discuss what the Philippines is doing to sustain this economic momentum. Good evening, Mr. Balisacan.
Good evening, Natasha.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for
To
inviting
start,
me.
can you tell us a little more about WEF and what it aims to achieve?
This World Economic Forum is that's brought here to the Philippines is as a forum of global leaders in the academe and in business sector and in government. These are CEOs. And this forum is an opportunity for us to showcase the Philippines, for them to see more about the progress that we have made in the Philippines, but more importantly for us also to get to market the Philippines because we think that there's so much that we can get from the participants in terms of interest for investment, for trade, for cooperation in various fronts in the economy, in the politics, in governance, and so on.
Speaking of the participants, do you have any specific major names perhaps that you could give us who will be coming here next week?
The Prime Minister of Vietnam will be here. The President of Indonesia will be here. A number of CEOs of top multinational firms will be here. Of course, top opinion makers will be here. Of course, the media, international media will be here, CNN. So I think it is a group of people who can articulate about the potentials of this country, particularly in the area of investment, market opportunities, trade opportunities, and these are opinion makers whose voices are or can make a lot of influence, and so it's really a good opportunity for us to show what the Philippines has done and what the potentials are and the opportunities in this country.
It sounds like there's a lot of things that will be discussed next week. What exactly is the theme of this year's
It's
forum?
leveraging growth, and it covers topics on the mechanics of equitable growth, achieving equitable progress. There will also be a lot of discussions on advancing models for sustainable development. Recent developments in the economy and in models, in partnerships, and also about the region as a whole, particularly the ASEAN economic integration.
And just coming out of ASEAN, how important is it then? It's the Philippines that is hosting the East Asia Forum.
Well, the Philippines, is a star at the moment, and there's so much that many countries can benefit from, also from our own experiences, particularly in the way we manage to propel the economy into a higher growth path, and also there is also a lot of opportunities for us to learn from the discussions, from the sharing of experiences, especially on what works well and what does not work well in the area of inclusive growth, inclusive business, financial inclusion, sustainable development, and so on.
Especially because the thrust of the Aquino administration right now is inclusive growth.
That's correct. Yeah.
Is that so? Was the theme shaped when the Philippines was chosen, or was it a theme that East Asia wanted, and it just so happened that it applied perfectly with the goals of the administration?
There's a lot of interest in the world now about inclusive growth.
Okay.
And since the Philippine Development Plan of 2011-2016 carries that title, that agenda for development, it was, I think, a kind of good opportunity, a good mixture of the interest in the global community and what we are doing as a nation to achieve inclusive growth.
And other than inclusive growth, can you tell us a little more about what the highlights of the forum will be? You mentioned some, you said sustainable development. What else can we look forward to?
Well, I think there will be several fora, workshops, both among ASEAN member countries, but also among and between CEOs and government leaders and academia, and the discussions will revolve around inclusive growth. And as I said, I think the concept is evolving, and there are new and emerging experiences.
Yes.
And this forum affords us an opportunity to get into that sphere of influences and hear about these recent developments, because for us, since inclusive growth has been a challenge, we really need to learn as fast as we can from the experiences of other countries. We have been gaining a lot of momentum also in achieving our own push for inclusive growth, but the learning from others can quicken the process of that inclusive growth objective, achieving that inclusive growth objective. Yeah.
So as much as the other countries you feel will learn from us and how quick we have gained momentum with the economy, do you feel then that this is the biggest benefit the Philippines will get from the forum? Basically learning best practices in terms of developing inclusive growth in the country?
Well, that's one, but I think the investment is the other one. Remember that these are global players. These are global opinion makers. These are top CEOs. These are top government executives, and the perceptions and the lessons that they see from the Philippines could influence the future evolution of this country by way of investment, trade, tourism, and even knowledge exchange and people-to-people exchange. So there's much that we can gain from this event.
So at the end of the forum, what do you think is the key, or what do you expect or wish the key takeaway of the Philippines will be?
That I think that they will see this country as a very viable and sustainable country to invest, to put their money in, for people out there to visit the country as tourists, because tourism is one of the major segments of our economy that we're trying to push for as a source of inclusive growth and inclusive development.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, we want to see the outcome in terms of the investments, in terms of the trade, in terms of the partnerships that our local firms will build with other firms outside there, particularly the multinational corporations, and including small and medium enterprises out there.
It sounds like there are a lot of important, very important people coming in. Could you tell us a little more about the preparations? Are you aware of how they plan to bring in these delegates in terms of security? Are you part of that planning?
Well, the entire cabinet is very much involved with the planning and the president no less. No?
Yes.
So we are and we have planned for this since 2 years ago. The theme, of course, it's a partnership between World Economic Forum and the Philippine government. So it's the choice of themes, the choice of topics, the choice of speakers. These are joint decisions.
And logistically, are we prepared to take in all these important VIPs from around the world?
I think so. We have been discussing and we have had a good deal of preparation on this one. Yeah, this is more or less, a kind of a test for our next big event, which would be the APEC in 2015.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, Sec, I'm curious because right now there's no air conditioning in NAIA. Is this a concern?
We were informed that they will be.
We'll be back.
They'll be putting up additional air conditioning units in time for the arrival of.
And then after that.
No, as you know, NAIA is under renovation, reconstruction, and I think that the current renovation of the building has affected the facilities there. So hopefully that when that thing is done, is completed, we'll have a much better airport, especially as we are moving all these major airlines to the Terminal 3, so that should help.
And security-wise, are we also getting help from other countries? Are we partnering with anybody else, or is it going to be mainly local?
I'm sure that there is a protocol on that, on how our security people here relate with the security of leaders.
Additional security, yes.
I'm sure that I'm not involved with security matters, so I really don't know. But in events like this, there's especially when heads of state are involved, there's always this cooperation among governments.
Okay, Secretary, returning to the topics of the forum, I'm curious: is disaster risk reduction going to be one of the things that we'll be discussing?
It's that one of the topics on sustainable development, and investment in resiliency is one of those topics. And I think it's the way the development community is realizing now that the importance of climate change and disasters and the performance of nations. Investment in resiliency has become an important concern, and has acquired a high level of priority among development agencies and even the business community.
I remember the president actually pushing for more cooperation with ASEAN countries when it comes to disaster risk reduction in last week's summit. Can you tell us a little more about how disasters here in the Philippines have affected our growth prospects?
Every time there is a major disaster, it pulls us down. But the trick is to be able to recover quickly so that you can go back to your momentum. That's the challenge for us in the case of Yolanda, because of the gravity and the wide swath of the impact, the impact of the economy, especially in the Visayas region, is quite significant. No? And if we have not acted quickly, especially in the area of relief, reconstruction, rehabilitation, that would have pulled us down and we would be missing our growth targets, our development outcome targets as indicated in our Philippine Development Plan.
Yes.
So obviously it affects us, and if you are not careful, it could push us down and make the goal of poverty reduction, employment generation even harder.
Makes it harder.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what exactly are we doing aside from trying to rehabilitate or reconstruct areas that have been destroyed right away, like you mentioned? What else is the government doing to cope with possible disasters in the future?
Well, we have to, the thrust right now is not only rebuilding or reconstruction, but build better so that we can, our structures, buildings, houses can withstand strong typhoons and even earthquakes and landslides. That's one. The technology, the choice of technology has to be made paramount in our design for standards. And number two is we are looking at the financial arrangements, for example, the role of insurance, such that insurance not only for individuals but also for communities and for the nation as a whole, so that whenever you have disasters and can put people make people lose their jobs or lose their assets, they would be able to recover those assets quickly if they have access to insurance.
I'm interested, I ask you this because I'm interested in factors that are affecting our ability to develop inclusive growth quicker.
Yeah.
I think one of the other issues that have been a topic in last week's summit was the territorial dispute, which was a huge highlight. What do you personally think of that in terms of how it's affecting our ability to sustain economic growth?
I don't think it so far. No?
Okay.
So far, I don't think it has made much difference.
Okay.
But obviously, threats like this, if they are there for the long haul, would affect eventually the economy. No? And it is in the interest of everyone to make sure that trade is not impeded, that goods flow, people, goods, and services flow across borders without threat that would raise the cost of doing business for the participants and stakeholders, for the countries. No? So the efforts that we are making are very pro stability in the sense that we are not positioning ourselves as an aggressor or militaristic, but we are bringing this issue to the proper forum, international fora, with bringing it to the proper courts where the disputes can be resolved amicably, and with that, I think we should be able to position the economy in such a way that the working of the economy is not affected much by these disputes.
Well, we just heard earlier today that China will be skipping the forum next week. Do you think China is snubbing us?
I am not quite sure.
Do you think this territorial dispute, because it affects the region, and as you mentioned, do you think it will be discussed next week?
This issue about integration, it probably comes in because there will be sessions on connectivity. Connectivity of countries, as well as the connectivity of East Asia with the rest of the world, or countries within East Asia, ASEAN versus the rest of Asia. And so that the issue of peace and order, security could come in.
It's so integrated. Economic growth.
And but I don't think it will have this kind of thing happens in the past in many countries. But that has not, for example, Korea has always had these disputes with Japan, with its neighbor, but since their domestic institutions are pretty strong, they're able to to continue growing. I
Okay.
think that's what we want to achieve in our country. No? That our domestic institutions are strong, and our fundamentals, particularly our macroeconomic fundamentals, are solid, so that irritations like
Yes.
like those ones, disputes with your border, would not significantly impact on the working of the economy.
And as you mentioned, so far, this territorial dispute has not had any major effects. And even despite disasters, the Philippines has grown better than expected.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little more about what the Philippines is doing to make sure the growth that we felt trickles down to the poor?
Well, yes. Our challenge is obviously to get more jobs.
Yes.
And there are two sides to that. No? One is the need to continue the rapid growth, expanding the economic pie.
Okay.
And for that to happen, investment has to continue growing. You know? But the other is also to address the issue and the quality of human capital,
Okay.
particularly the mismatch between what the industries need and what we supply,
Okay.
what our schools supply. And as you can see, in the there's a big part of the unemployment and underemployment problem in our country is found among the youth, among the
Fresh graduates.
fresh graduates, no? And while at the same time you see that there are all these announcements for vacancies.
Right.
Yeah. So there's
Right. There's a mismatch.
there's a mismatch. You have to address that, and we are addressing that aggressively with our TESDA and with our CHED working together to
Yes.
make sure that that mismatch will be reduced significantly, and our school system is responsive to what the industries need. No? The other element is to improve the opportunities for high quality employment. No?
Okay.
And so what that means is we need to structure the economy. We need to move the economy to sectors that can generate high quality jobs. And so we are in our Philippine Development Plan, particularly the newly updated Philippine Development Plan that will guide us for until 2016. We are focusing on reviving our industry, our manufacturing sector. We are focusing on tourism. We are focusing on logistics, particularly and infrastructure.
Okay.
And we are focusing on linking our small farmers to industry and to the global supply chain, so that these jobs, high quality jobs, not just the 1 hour a day job, but the jobs that are associated with high productivity and therefore high payments to labor. If we can, if we succeed in doing that, and we are very confident that we will succeed in doing that, because we have identified the bottlenecks. And addressing those bottlenecks, we should be able to reduce significantly the level of underemployment in this country, and we should be able to make growth more inclusive, and that could be seen in the number of poor, the proportion of our population deemed poor, significantly reduced.
Okay. Are we on track with our 2016 goals?
We're on track in many counts.
What are we struggling with?
We are struggling with, as I said earlier, and that inclusive thing.
It's really the poverty levels.
It's we're starting from a situation where poverty is so high, and when this government came in, if you look at the history of poverty reduction in the country, the decade before that, while there's some modest improvement in the economy, the poverty levels remained high, and the capacity of the economy to generate jobs was quite weak, efforts, and what we are doing is to ensure that the growth this time would be accompanied by expansion of opportunities, not only in terms of economic, but also in terms of access to social services, particularly health, education. I think this is very important that we keep emphasizing that that poverty is often, in this country at least, is often an intergenerational issue. We are trying to break that that by investing heavily on human capital formation among children of the poor. Our conditional cash transfer program is one of the biggest you can find now in the world.
Okay. This is it's interesting because people on Twitter are very interested in the thrust of the government for inclusive growth. So let's take some of their questions. We have Oward Bodhi, and he says, what are the implications of, well, this is going back to the forum, of further ASEAN integration this year and next year on Philippine economic growth, specifically the lowering of tariffs and the liberalization of the region's financial sector?
My take of that as an economist, as an observer of the Philippine economy for the last 2 decades, is that we should have done our reforms, economic, even political, long ago. And we should have not waited on ASEAN or because the successful countries among us have done these reforms without waiting for ASEAN. But I think the good thing about the ASEAN for us now is that it makes that pressure even harder, no? To make sure that this time we are not left behind, but that this time we catch up with our neighbors, and we have this opportunity to catch up with investments that we have already made in good governance, in institutional reforms, and the outcomes that we are already reaping from these investments. I think that the opportunity to sustain a high level of growth, the opportunity to open up opportunities for our population will be is not much better than what we had in recent years. So I am quite confident that this economic integration among countries within Asia can only be beneficial to us, and we must push for. In fact, my take is that we should be reforming with or without
the integration.
because it's long overdue. That's our failure not to do the reforms, say in the 70s or in the 80s, is what explains what we are now.
And with what you just said, we actually have a question that relates to that on Twitter. @Clause30 says, how can you then reconcile 7% growth with 7% unemployment and 25% poverty rate? No sign of inclusive growth there.
No, I think that one has to look at the context of our growth. No? If you look around the experiences of countries, especially among our neighbors, no, that have achieved so much poverty reduction. These countries had been growing for 6-7% for the last 2 decades, 3 decades.
Yes.
So when they say rapid growth, they are talking about several years. When in this country, what are we talking about? We are just talking about 3 years, 4 years.
At least recently.
Recent years. So, and the problems of the economy, the problems of unemployment, the problems of underemployment, are something that cannot be solved overnight. First of all, you need massive investments. You need massive infrastructure development to get those high quality jobs. And so to imagine, or even just to imagine that in 3 years you can reduce your unemployment from 7.3 or 7.5 to 6.5. That's not likely in the history of nations, especially
It's
for
just not feasible.
What is realistic is to ensure that you keep your momentum, you keep growing, keep your house in order, making sure that your fundamentals as you keep growing are credible, and inspire confidence. And only then, when investments keep coming, that the capital stock of the country improves, that employment rises,
Okay.
that more jobs are created. When you are, in our case, when you have this long period of very little growth, long period of very little investment, and you have so much of that labor, underemployed even,
Yes.
there's so much slack. But you cannot absorb those labor without investment. Of course, you can create employment easily, no? But the question is, what kind of employment? What type of jobs are you creating? Is just the kind of the jobs that the street sweepers or the cigarette vendors. That's not the kind of jobs that will
Continue the growth.
That you can call inclusive growth. So the bottom line is that you need to continue this push for reforms to ensure that the growth that we are experiencing is sustained, and when that's is sustained long enough, investment is sustained, and when you get those confidence, that's when you get into the higher level of what you call investment rates. Now our investment rates are quite low. The total investment as a proportion of our GDP is low compared to what we see in our neighbors. But that's expected in an initially growing country. As countries move to a higher growth trajectory and sustain that trajectory for a long period, their investment rates will rise.
Okay.
And that's what we expect to achieve if we just have to be, persistent with this program. Otherwise, if you, listen to voices that says, you should.
We don't feel it. We don't see it.
You can easily be distracted, and in the end, you're not going to achieve anything.
Okay. Just to start wrapping up, one of the biggest things, obviously, right now is the pork barrel scam and all of these names coming out. Obviously, the goal is to sustain this growth, these reforms. But how do you think the pork barrel scam and these continuous corruption scandals affects our economic growth?
No, I would like to see this whole episode in our governance history, that it should be seen positively, in the sense that you are unearthing abuses, and you're learning from that. You're putting, as a result, better safeguards, better institutions, so that this will not be repeated in the future.
Okay.
So that should be an additional push for better and higher growth for the future. So I would see it as a positive development,
rather than
negative, because in the first place, what are these corruptions that we're talking about? They're talking about corruptions done in the past, right? Before even this administration came in. But yet, you want to make sure that you have learned enough from those corruptions, so that you can now design your institutions, our governance, so that those will not be repeated in the future. And because if they will be repeated in the future, then the country will not
Correct.
will never be able to move into higher growth trajectory, because you waste a lot of resources, you waste a lot of time, you waste a lot of opportunities.
So on the contrary, you don't think it should scare investors to see all this corruption? You actually think that it's a positive thing to show, look at the reforms we're doing to fight this?
No, as long as they, the investors are not stupid. The investors are always looking for because they look at the long term. When they sink their money into a country, they're not looking at just this year or next year. They look at the potential of the country for the medium to the long haul. No? So they will really look at you closely. And so what is important for us is they are seeing us now as a country that is doing a lot of reforms, that's pushing for improvements in our governance, and that we really mean business when we say we will achieve inclusive growth, we'll achieve inclusive development, we'll push for a higher growth trajectory for the country, we'll address the social problems. Those are the things that they will be looking at.
Okay. That said, a lot of global reports have credited the reformist government of the president. They've said that is possibly largely a huge cause of the investors' confidence that we're getting. How important do you think the 2016 elections are?
I'm not so worried about it, frankly.
Okay.
I think what is again, you just look at the experiences of our neighbors, that good reforms, especially when they are rooted, would make the citizens crave for the continuity of those of what they're enjoying. And in a democratic space like ours, our votes count, right? And so I think what is important is that we ensure that what we do are good for the long term, and that we are not doing things simply because it's beneficial for the incumbent. The reforms that we are doing are not something that are expected to benefit only this administration. For example, many of our infrastructure programs, the big ones, are not going to be inaugurated by the current president. But should we stop? No, because that's not how we are looking at progress and the long term of this country. We are investing for the long term, and not in the next 2 years.
Your optimism is very refreshing.
No, but that's how I see the country at the moment.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sec, for sharing this with us and talking to us about the WEF next week.
Thank you, Natasha. It's a pleasure.
We've been talking to NEDA Director General Arsenio Balisacan about the steps the Philippines is taking to sustain its economic growth. I'm Natasha Gutierrez. Thank you for watching.